Hey everyone, welcome back to an episode of the Elixir Foundations series. In this episode right here, we're going to be continuing our journey working with GenServer, and exploring what it is and how we can leverage it to solve our problem. So basically, generally we would separate the code in our GenServer into two parts. There is the client, so I'm going to add a comment here, so client. And we will have the actual callbacks, so the server callbacks. Something like that would be enough to kind of like discern the parts of code. So generally, we as a developer, when we call the functions on our GenServer, it would be def, it would be something like URL. So this is something we can just make up and choose whatever we want to call these functions. And then basically, we would do a GenServer.call, and then basically here we would pass in the PID. So here we would have to pass in the PID, and the PID goes here. We need to pass in the, what the name of the message we're going to call. So this is kind of like the message that we're passing from the client to the server, so the GenServer. So essentially now we need to handle this URL. We need to handle this call. So in GenServer, there's two ways of running a function. You can either have a call, or you can either have a cast. And the difference between them is that a cast is something that you don't expect a return from. So you're just like telling it, hey, go do something, and you don't care about what the output is. But then a call is something where you expect to return the output. So for example, here we're gonna say, hey, give me the URL that you're handling. So we're saying to the GenServer, so let's say now we create a GenServer, to render a page. We can say, hey, can you return me which page you are rendering? And that's what this function is going to do. So now what we need to do is we need to do a def handle call URL. And then basically now what we will have access here is from. So the from is the PID of whoever is calling this function, and then we have the state. And in this case, the state is going to be this map over here. So this is what I mean when we pass in the URL, we get the map, and then basically we will always have access to, in the callbacks, we have access to the state, whether we do a cast or a call, whatever, and we'll always have this access. And then here what we can do is do a reply. And we can say state.url and then state. So the first, the first argument here is what we actually want it to return, to the person who's calling, or in this case, the process that's calling this. And then here we need to return the state. So what will be persisted into here, basically the next call. So we can actually manipulate. So for example, if we had like an array and we wanted to be able to remove an item from an array and then have it return the rest of the array, we could pass in this is what's called the new state. But if we want to keep the same state, we just pass the state in as it is. So now, for example, I can call on this. So I'm going to do a restart on my app, and I'm going to start a page equals botiful.render.engine.start link, and then https artelectual.com. So now we have a PID. So what I can do is I can get the PID like this. So okay, this is pattern matching. So PID equals page. So now let's say, for example, we're rendering the page and we are managing so many pages, and we want to see for this process which page is rendering. We can do something like this. So I can go and do botiful.render.engine.url, and I can pass in the PID. So now we get the URL returned from our state over here. And if I call it again, we get the same thing because we pass the state in. So what happens here if I pass in an empty map over here? The next time, let's say for example URL, and then we pass in an empty string over here. So this is the new state, right? And then now what happens is, the next time we call on this, so if we call it once, we'll get the URL that we pass in from the init callback. But now once we've called the URL, it's gone. If this is what we pass in. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what that means. So I'm going to go and do a PID, and then we're going to do a Botiful dot render dot engine dot start link HTTPS artilectual. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and start that. And then now let's call botiful.render.engine.url PID. So the first time, yeah, we are going to get it. We are going to get the URL. But the second time, it's empty now because that's what we passed in here. And that's basically how this whole reply thing works. So that's, handling calls in GenServer. Hope you guys found this useful. This is a members exclusive episode. And so thank you for becoming a member. And so with that, I want to wrap up this episode. I'll see you guys in the next one.